And before we take a break, I just want to go over with some questions with Miss Ronda Rockett tonight concerning the rebuilding our communities. Like, for instance, how would you rebuild a community if you could? This is to everybody. Write your thoughts down in the comments, and then we can discuss it a little bit after the break before we do our EDU or whatnot. Are your words building up others on a consistent basis? I know we slip. Sometimes people tick us off or whatever. But, you know, at the end of the day, you don't want nobody ticking you off. So you know how you don't want to be came at. Why don't we display another way where it won't be offensive to nobody? Because, you know, we're walking in some sensitive territory sometimes. And number 3, what changes are you making today in your community? So when we come back, we're going to talk about that a little bit, elaborate that. And then we're going to do our EDU for our lives. And so, you know, we'll be back for another set. So stay tuned, y'all. Don't go nowhere. If you ain't got that app, what are you waiting for? Spreaker.com.
myself. myself.
School is in, and yes, we're going to do some EDU off of www.thevillagemethod.org/it-takes-a-village-2/ The Village Method. You can find that there on any search box. So, it takes a village to rebuild a community and sustain a people. January 30th, 2017 by Mark Gaskins, and it says, while working for the Peace Corps, a young African-American woman traveled her usual route from her homestead in Tanzania. She waved as she did every day to the women sitting or working outside their homes. But this particular day, they called her over and inquired about her family origin. When they finally understood she was from the U.S., they nodded in harmony and responded, "Oh, you are one of the lost ones." As perceived by this woman in a small village in Tanzania, the African-American community has strayed from the village. The virtue in being lost is that there is always a way back. Still, the intellectual will question, where have we gone? And what was the starting point? The truth is, African-Americans all throughout the world are breaking ground each and every day in one area or another. However, the lack of unity and collaborative movement has hindered marked progress. The Village Method's approach breaks the cycle of hopelessness and miseducation by creating a community to sustain the vision, a community that lives the culture and grooms the next generation to set the tone of the conversation. While villages vary in traditions and customs, there are a few reoccurring themes. The Kaye, as it referred in Nigeria, is the core of one's community, culture, and personal values. Furthermore, it links each into a shared vision and, in turn, action. When one is a part of a village, they have a role and are held accountable, and they hold their fellow man accountable. The community is typically comprised of a small number of families and contributes local support through a rotation of officers who unites the village to longevity, not only in the development of the community, but also in the people. Village rulers built the physical, social, and spiritual structures of their communities to sustain against natural disaster and war, ultimately securing survival. Today, African American communities are developing without a core. And without a solid sense of identity and community, many young African Americans are vulnerable to peer pressure and environmental circumstance. As a proactive intervention, the Village Method, TVM, stands in the gap and becomes the center of interdependence, direction, and identity. Quote, in a recent study published in the Journal of Black Psychology, researchers found that using, quote, cultural orientation, Afrocentric values, and racial socialization predicted positive youth development variables with these effects varying by gender, end quote. During a time when African Americans represent just 13% of the U.S. population, with 12 states having an African American population of less 3%, it's essential that growing black youth have access to a network that strengthens them to go the distance. Many African American adults can recall the first time they discovered the idea of race, most likely brought to their attention by someone else. It's then that they begin to see themselves through the eyes of others. Growing up feeling masked and examined influences how one accesses the world. While precautions are justified in the wake of police brutality and the surge of digital racism, the negative behavior of others cannot become the African American community's burden to bear. African American youth are living in a state of double consciousness, often impacting the way that they approach their school, work, society, finances, and health. In the 1903 publication of The Souls of Black Folk, Du Bois introduced the concept of double consciousness. describing the awareness of feeling as though your identity is divided into various parts, making it challenging or difficult to have a unified identity. TVM programming places youth in an environment that not only acknowledges their academic or financial needs, but their cultural ones as well. And within the system of parents, teachers, and community leaders, the youth sense of self is continuously validated. Bantu, a South African philosophy, says that I am because we are. As a village, everyone is equally invested and thus intrinsically driven to reach a holistic objective. People genuinely want to see the best for one another as one is a part of the whole. With a model that balances leadership and the versatile influx of information, TVM encourages oversight, social responsibility, and support from when a community member of youth become weak and require help to achieve their next goal. The African American community is facing a variety of obstacles. Most are complex and fragile from years of agitation and partial resolutions, with a variety of moving pieces and stakeholders. It's imperative that everyone is on the same side and lifting up the youth to reach the next level of excellence. In the words of Thurgood Marshall, none of us got where we are solely by pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps. We got here because of somebody, a parent, a teacher, an Ivy League crony, or a few nuns bent down and helped us pick up our boots. Imagine when mass numbers of African American students failed in schools, there was a network of educators and administrators who advocated for policy and curriculum improvements. Now, visualize the world where African American parents have access to mental and physical health physicians who understand their narrative and cultural lens. That's the vision of the Village Methods Framework. TVM invites individuals with the information and experiences to participate in the proactive developments of today's youth. Instead of coming together following a tragedy to remedy a solution, the TVM approach implements strategies in 4 core areas of community development: academic excellence, financial literacy, I like that, healthy living, and cultural development. From the parents, school administrators, law enforcement, and community mentors, everyone works in pursuit of a unified goal, ensuring that in each area the youth never loses their way. No one can do it all, and burnout and bias are a reality. Community collaborations with leaders from each sector guarantee that youth remain surrounded in compassion and possibility. Yeah, thank you. That was powerful. That was really powerful. And that's something we needed to hear, because we can hear all day the negatives about the African American community in that sense. And we can sit here and make excuses and say that we don't have opportunities and open doors for us. But opportunity doesn't knock. You have to knock on opportunity. If an opportunity presents itself with those facts that we just seen and heard, if you're on Facebook Live or whatever, that's just giving you a tool to get out of the rut of cultural indiversity. A lot of crime on the streets, a lot of negativity within our thinking and the way we deal with each other on a regular basis. Sometimes some people, you walk in an inner city neighborhood and you speak to them and they think you want to hurt them because it's so much oppression and depression and anxiety in the community. But if we're constantly showing the example of building one another up, it shouldn't be a problem. What you think, Rhonda?
I feel love.
I know that was a lot.
but to be honest, it kind of sums up what I'm saying and the purpose of my project.
Okay.
It's basically confirmation that it does take a village to raise one child. It does.
Yeah, one.
Just one alone. So imagine how many people in one community and what they had to go through just to get that child to grow up to go to college. If you go to Africa, you see a lot of students. You know what I'm saying? A lot of males and females that do have the little opportunities to go to college. Mm-hmm. You go to China, you see a lot of kids. Let me tell you something. I had a teacher.
All right.
And he was my math teacher. I love my math teacher.